I teach undergraduate and graduate students at the Schulich School of Business. I have about 60 or 70 students in a semester, and this is definitely bigger than my classes. I teach courses on retirement planning, pensions, wealth management over the life cycle, estate planning, and I'm often asked how I got into that area. You know, how does someone who is barely 40, specialist on pensions and retirement planning and retirement income? And the fact is that many, many years ago, when I was a graduate student myself at the same university, at York University, I was studying a completely different topic. I was studying to become a mathematical physicist. I was actually a graduate student in mathematics and physics, and I was doing research on mathematical equations as they relate to gravitational physics and things that are very inapplicable in finance and in economics. And I was about 2 years away from completing a Ph.D. thesis in mathematical physics. And unfortunately, my plans changed because my father, who at the time was about 48 years old, my dad, unfortunately, he developed colon cancer. And the colon cancer that he developed at the age of 48 did something called metastasized. It metastasized, and what that means is it went to his lungs, and it went to his liver, and eventually, unfortunately, after about a struggle that lasted about a year, he passed away, just shy of his 50th birthday. And as some of you might know, the Jewish tradition, after someone passes away, is that the family of the deceased, the children, the relatives, do a process of mourning for about a week. It's called Shiva, the process of Shiva. Mourning for about a week, and we did that as well. My dad was actually a rabbi. We lived in many different countries over the years, so my dad had a congregation, and this is in Toronto, and many of the congregants came to visit during this week of Shiva. My brothers were there. I'm the oldest. I had a baby sister at the time that was sitting Shiva with us. She was about 4-years-old. So during this week of Shiva that's taking place at my parents' house, my mom comes over and sits herself down next to me during one of these rather exhausting days, and she starts handing me documents. She starts handing me something from the bank about a mortgage. And then she hands me some policy from an insurance company, and she hands me a statement from a fund company, and then she gives me something from the local savings and loan, and she's giving me these documents, and she says, Moshe, do we have enough? Do we have enough? And despite all my training in mathematics and physics and statistics, I had no idea. I knew very little about financial planning, economic affairs, insurance. So I said to her then and there, during this period of Shiva, Mom, I really don't know anything about these things, but I promise you I will find out about this, and we're going to figure it out. And I actually dropped out of the Ph.D. program in mathematics, and I went across campus to our university's business school. We have one of the largest business schools in Canada, and I actually started to enroll in courses on financial planning. I wanted to learn more about the process. I realized that you can't really do much financial planning without understanding economics, so I took a course on economics. And then I realized that I need to know a little bit more about monetary policy. And then I realized estate planning and taxation critical. And then the whole subject of insurance, critical illness, disability, long-term care. So I was taking these courses one after the other. After about 2 years of doing this, the dean of my school came over to me and said, look, Moshe, you've been here so long, if you take one more course, we'll give you the Ph.D. And lo and behold, almost 20 years later, I am still at the same business school. But I'm not taking courses anymore. Done with the courses. I've actually graduated, and I am a professor at that university, and I teach students about financial planning and wealth management and retirement income planning. What I'd like to share with you over the half hour that we have here together is how I have been explaining to my mom, as well as my students, the process of financial planning as we transition through the life cycle. And the key here is how to explain it without equations and without fancy charts and graphs. How do we explain it in an intuitive way that people can understand? Because right now we are facing a very big challenge. Pension funds, the instruments that used to provide us with a stable retirement income, pension plans, have suffered historical losses from what's happened to the market. And what a lot of companies have started to do as a result of the trillion losses is they have decided to shut down their pension plans. And I don't mean to pick on any one company that's done this, but Fidelity is a very well-known financial services company, and they recently shut down their defined benefit pension plan for all their employees. And the way a DB pension plan works, it's an ideal instrument for providing retirement income. As many of you know, the way a pension works is that when you retire and you stop working, continue to get paid. Usually, it's something like 2% times the number of years you worked at the company. So if you worked at Fidelity for 30 years, 30 times 2%, 60, you continue to get 60% of your salary for the rest of your life as long as you live. That's called a defined benefit pension. More and more companies are shutting their pension plans down. They're not allowing any new employees into the plan, and at the same time, existing employees can't accrue any more credits. They're being moved into defined contribution plans and 401k plans. They have their own benefits and their own risks, but the guarantee of retirement income for the rest of people's lives is slowly being scaled back, and this is happening across the industry. This is not just companies that are in the automobile industry or the steel industry or the airlines. In fact, this is now happening in the non-for-profit sector as well. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago, just a few months ago, no more pensions for Roman Catholic priests. I mean, you know, if they don't have a long-term horizon, who does? And they've had the pension plan shut down. What's going on here? Why is this trend taking place? I think it's important to understand that what's driving this is the burden that's being placed on these companies by the requirement and the responsibility to pay pensions. And here's an example of this. Anybody want to guess how many retirees like Toyota has per 100 workers that come in? Toyota is a very young company in the U.S. Young in the sense that it only has 2 people that are retired and getting a pension and getting paid per 100 people that come into work. Honda is slightly older. Nissan now has 11 retirees. 11 people stay home every single day. They're drawing a pension. 100 people come into work. Anybody want to guess what this ratio looks like for Chrysler, Ford, and GM? People come into work. How many stay home? For those of you in the back, I'll read the numbers. This is not a typo. There are 3 digits there. Chrysler has 153 retirees per 100 workers. Ford is at 163, and GM is at 320 retirees per 100 workers. In fact, the actuaries that calculate and gave me the numbers tell me that these are old figures. This was in 2008. By now, GM might be at 500 to 1. In fact, the same actuaries joke that GM really isn't a car manufacturer. GM is a pension fund and healthcare provider. They're making cars to pay pensions and healthcare benefits. In fact,